Now the moment we've all been waiting for.
I am Nate Riggle, and you are listening to The Way of the Bonfire. Ooh, we got a lot of good stuff happening. I'm excited to let you know that there's going to be more than just me soon enough on this podcast. We've got people coming out of the woodwork that connect with what we're talking about here, and you'll finally get to hear a little back and forth and get some additional perspective and add some more connection to the mix. This show is all about using curiosity and perspective to bring the world together in more meaningful and lasting ways that lead to better growth, enjoyment, and connection. So good people can finally stop waiting to make the most of their lives. And today is part 1 of a limited 5-part series, which is a challenge to anyone listening to put on a human connection clinic in their life. And I'm going to start by identifying why we all desperately need to go to the connection clinic. Then I will address what that word connection means and how we can learn to identify where we're using its unhelpful imitations in all the wrong ways. And then I have today's challenge, which is a simple task that you can and should take action on as a starting point. All right, let's dive in. If there's anything I've learned in all my soul searching and observations of how to get centered back on what is really meaningful and impactful in our lives, it's that we as humans right now need to get better at connection than we have become. We're starved for it. And there's tons of data on this, but also a lot of personal experience, a lot of conversations I've had. It comes up in every single conversation as a major pain point. Now, the way that people say that might be a little bit different each time, but we've slowly over the last 10 to 20 years taken our eye off the ball as individuals and as humankind on this topic. And how did that happen? Like, how did we lose our ability, this kind of skill of connecting and this habit of doing it the right way? And it's more than just what the pandemic restrictions did or any of that sort of social distancing stuff. Our disconnection was accelerating before that. And I have this unique point that I'm at and kind of perspective based a lot on just off of my the age that I happen to be right now, because I spent like the first half of my life with like very little of internet and a lot of the stuff that we have now, a lot of the things that have developed and become the norm. And then I spent the second half. So I have this perspective where I've been able to observe it from both sides relatively recently. And it's kind of a half and half thing. And if you're thinking, well, we have too much connection, like we're overconnected, then we have to get clear on what that word means and kind of level set the level and type of connection that I'm talking about. Our definition of the word connection has been diluted. It is used in so many different contexts that we almost stop hearing the word with any significance. When someone says connect, they could simply mean an interaction took place. Like if someone were to say, "Oh, I connected with John yesterday," that could mean a lot of things. I mean, the way that I just said it sounds more like a meaningless data point for the historical records and compliance department. Like that could have just been an information exchange through whatever medium of communication they use. Getting someone's attention and causing them to act or respond is not a connection. It's an interaction, and it may have some impact or usefulness or necessity, but it does not graduate to connection until it gets some level of depth and consistency and meaning. Like I have automated workflows from software that send me a text message all the time when certain criteria or conditions are triggered, and I do respond to them. So an interaction or exchange takes place, but that's just a machine and a human talking. So I wouldn't call that much of a connection. And people have an audience of followers on platforms of all different types, but the number of followers or quote unquote friends or quote unquote connections indicates nothing about the depth of connection or the power and health and possibility of that relationship. But we're like been placing a lot of value on that. There's a lot of software that makes an attempt at automating and measuring the human factors of interactions. Like we're trying to do it with software, trying to actually measure like what is the depth there. Like they can tell you in great detail what emotions and intentions and perceived loyalty is present in the behavior of a person based on data and tracking mechanisms that are collecting that sort of thing at these different interaction points. And I've been in tech for 15 years and worked for innovators in the fastest growing companies in the world that specialize in exactly that. And like if you've been living under a rock, maybe you're not as aware of that, but I think most people like they know that there's all this kind of noise and attention on things like AI right now, and all those kinds of programs are getting smarter and more detailed every day. But an insight from a non-human software or machine or system is still just an insight, even if it comes in the form of an interpretation or a recommendation or advice or words of encouragement on a screen. Even if it's based on the real life advice of another personally trusted human's beliefs and experiences and words from their consciousness that were put into the machine, it's still just an interaction. It can perceive and interpret and respond, but it cannot love you. It cannot love for you. Even if it's getting close to or has already achieved some form of, like the rumors tend to indicate right now, some form of self-awareness or sentience, like they're talking about. If you just listen in closely, you kind of see there's a lot of people are on edge about that right now. Whether it's gotten to that point secretly behind the scenes or not, that does not mean that it knows you and cares about you and relates to you on a human level. It can imitate it and replicate connection, but it can't replace it. Like it can observe it happening. It can document it. It can adapt to it. It can mimic it. It can speak with you like a human. It can listen longer than any human, make decisions and process information faster than any human. It can retain and recall and synthesize more information and stick to its commitments better than any single person alive has the mental or physical capacity to do. You can trust it to do its job on time better than any human in most cases. It's a tool and a resource that already is and will be powerful beyond comprehension that constantly changes the fabric of how we connect with each other. Like we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and we can't act like it's not happening because it has usefulness. It makes connections, but it does not do connection. Not the kind I'm talking about. We've been slowly becoming reliant on it as a replacement for the human connection that our mind, our heart, our spirit, and consciousness actually needs to grow and thrive. And that's not me saying that from some, like, I mean, I already believed it from a philosophical standpoint, but there's a ton of research and neuroscience right now in published papers that show if when a brain doesn't have another human, a connection, then it starts to get unhealthy. And I believe it goes beyond just the brain, but it's a consciousness and there's a lot to it. I'm not going to get all into that, but I'll say these sorts of advancements are doing some great things for humanity and the relief of suffering and freeing up humans to do more of the stuff that they actually enjoy and prefer. So like I applaud that. Like we need it and it's useful and like let's look at both sides of the coin here, but we're also mistaking it for something that it isn't capable of giving us. Let's talk about mimicry for a second. There's that old saying that says, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and eats like a duck, it's a duck. I'm sorry, but that's no longer true unless it is a duck. We've become like the fish in the water by our own lack of practice in the disciplines of awareness, curiosity, introspection, patience, and intention. And your boy's about to do a fishing analogy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, warm up to this one, baby. A largemouth bass needs to eat minnows or crayfish often as its primary source of nutrition in a lot of the lakes and rivers that I fish. Like, it has to keep its senses dialed in to get its food at the right moment. When it's hungry, its senses will be on heightened awareness for a signature pattern of light, sounds, and movement and scent that looks, smells, and sounds like a crayfish crawling or swimming by. And when it does ambush one just right and eat and takes that in and eats it, its physiology tells it that it's filled and has gotten proper nutrition to keep growing and reproducing and avoiding predators. There are lures out there made out of carefully molded soft plastic and rubber in the exact size, shape, and dimensions and colors of crayfish that take into account every single detail up to the way the fake bait refracts light in certain conditions and depths and color of water and the surrounding environment. It will move exactly like a live crayfish falling through the water and encountering invisible currents and turbulence. And this is embarrassing, but I've been fooled by my own lure in the water thinking it was a live native species in that body of water. That's right. The thing that I consciously spent money to buy, packed in my tackle box, chose as the best imitation, and tied onto the line and embedded with the hook still fools me into thinking that it's the real crayfish in the water. I'm the guy that put it in the water, and I still fall for it. And what's even more interesting is that a largemouth bass will bite onto the fake lure and be so excited by the texture and salt that's embedded in the rubber in just the right quantity that it will sometimes not let go, even if it's not hooked. And so like, this is like, happens all the time. Somebody will have a fish on the line and they're thinking, oh, I got him. I'm going to catch this fish. And I say, well, no, we don't celebrate until that thing's in the boat. Because what happens is it gets so excited by all that stuff on there that it won't let go, even though it's not hooked. Like this hook has not been set in its mouth. Like it can let go anytime it wants, but it's still being pulled through the water toward the surface because it hasn't let go. It gets so fixated on the signals it's getting from the imitation that it will not release the bait until it gets to the surface and realizes sometimes too late that something's not right. All it has to do is just let go of it. And what you thought you had hooked is now just an empty line sinking through the water, even though you kept consistent pressure and tension on it. It was never trapped. It didn't think it was trapped. It was just responding to the physiological cues it was getting in the moment. It didn't want that piece of plastic. It just thought it did. And it thought it was giving it something. And what I'm getting at is that a smart fish lives a long, happy life. Like one that does that and isn't ending up in the frying pan and getting pulled out of the water all the time. A smart, big old fish, it knows the difference. And the same thing goes for real connection and imitation connection. The issue is we as a people have had all sorts of new things dropped in front of us in the last 10 to 20 years that look like they may or may not be what we want or need to feel that sense of love and quality nourishment of the body and soul that comes from connection. So step one in the connection clinic starts with you and no one else. I know it's counterintuitive when the subject is connection and bringing the world together, but that's why we miss it so easily. So the first challenge, and this is part one. First, let me give you, I've got 4 things you need to know before I give it to you. Number 1, you will not get much value out of this if you just listen out of casual curiosity. Don't be passive. Someone said that to me, and I just, like, it's always stuck in my mind, like, oh, I can't be passive. Actually do the challenge instead of just pondering it or hearing it or repeating it to someone else. Like, this isn't supposed to be interesting. for a conversation, this is supposed to be something that actually does something for you. Like it affects an actual change. Number two, because this is such a personal one, like I just really feel like I need to say this. I am not a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist. I'm not a clinical social worker or a mental health counselor. And this should not be considered a replacement for therapy or mental health counseling. It's just an exercise in curiosity and awareness that has helped me personally gain clarity and commitment and momentum. I'm not giving medical advice or counseling, but please seek a mental health professional if you have symptoms or specific concerns in those areas. Number three, think of this challenge as a prerequisite to the other 4 parts to follow over the next few episodes. Because I said it's a 5-part series, but it starts with this first one. Like you really don't want to jump into the other ones until you do number 1, or at least give it a shot, or take a little bit of action on it and have that in your mind as like this is the base. Like it all starts here. Number 4, there's just one core question that I'm going to share, but I'm about to share a lot of supporting questions to keep you on course and to guide your reflection in this one area. You don't have to do all of them to get the value out of this. So pick some if you don't want to do all of them, but I'm going to share them all and include them in the show notes so you can come back to them if you want to go deeper for your own reference. All right, let's get into it. Oh, actually, I've got a couple more. I got 2 more caveats. Ask yourself the following question and write down the answers and be honest with yourself. Like we get pretty good at like pretending, like to try to shape our mind to be positive and like believe things because we said them. And that's cool, but that's not what we're doing. Like at the very beginning, when we're being curious, we have got to be honest with ourselves. It's okay to admit if they're not where you wish they were or where you could be in this category. It's not negativity. It's about taking inventory so you can take action and stop pretending like there's not something to be aware of. The other caveat is just on the flip side of that, resist the urge to punish yourself or get down on yourself or defeated or discouraged for where things are or are not versus where they should have been by now compared to other people or compared to what you expected. The worst thing you can do here is feel self-pity or just wallow in regret or resentment. Like that would be a counterproductive thing to do right now. Self-compassion is unconditional love despite your wins or failures. It's about practicing better connectedness and self-awareness. It's like taking the blindfold off of yourself so you can grow and be in a better ready state for anything. All right, here we go. The core question is, and this is the starting point category, how connected am I to myself? Counterintuitive because it's about you, and that's not, there's so many different camps and voices and things, but then I've fallen into that trap so many times where it's like, I'm just trying to do what I was told is the right thing to do. I'm trying to serve other people and I'm trying to live up to my responsibilities and my duties and the commandments or, the expectations or I'm trying to have integrity with the world. But what I've learned is that the most overlooked form of integrity is integrity with yourself. So to help you answer this question of how connected am I to myself, you have to be connected to yourself to even make any commitments or keep promises to yourself. And you're registering that constantly where you're like, I know what I want, but I'm not going to honor that. I'm going to honor somebody else's needs and wants first. And so here's some questions. Here's the kind of the barrage of additional questions to help you really think through this. How connected am I to myself? Number 1, how do I feel about my life right now? And people get crazy about this word feelings and stuff like, oh, it doesn't matter how you feel. Just go do it. No, you need to know. You need to know how you feel. You need to be able to have some kind of introspection to know what that is. Number 2, how do I feel about what is possible for me or what I'm capable of? The next one, what do I spend most of my time thinking about? And if you're like me, your brain goes 100 different directions on that one. It's not, what do I spend? What are the 10 things I think about most? Or what are the 3 things I think about most? It's what has the highest percentage of your time, your mental time? What is that spent on? The next one is, what do I spend most of my time doing? Next one, what do I say when I talk to myself? And how's that helping me or not helping me? What do I believe about my best self? Like, what do I believe about the best version of me? How do I spend most of my time feeling? What do I feel about myself? Like, what do I like about myself, or what do I wish was different? Or what would I like to feel about myself? Do I know what I want most for myself? Do I know why I want that? Do I feel guilty or selfish even asking that question? A lot of us have been conditioned to think that that's the complete opposite, that we're supposed to live a life of service and duty to others and to God and to whatever alliances or loyalties or things that we owe. But I want you to at least consider that if you're not whole, how can you love somebody else? How can you serve someone else from a place of strength? So do I feel guilty or selfish even asking that question? Next one is, what am I doing that lines up with that desire, this thing that I want most for myself, or that I want most? And am I doing it for the right reasons? And do I enjoy doing these things that line up with my desire to do them? The next one is, what is the simplest, easiest thing I can do before tomorrow to get even the tiniest bit of progress in better understanding myself, trusting myself, caring for, and showing more appreciation for myself? Next is, do I believe that I have to know myself better and love and care for myself now? Or is that something for another day after I've taken care of everything and everyone else well enough? Does that show up in my thoughts, my words, and actions every day? Does my life feel like a life of obligation and duty to others? Or am I consciously choosing my own expectations and deciding what commitments I want to make of my own will? Do I feel any fear, hesitancy, discomfort, or pride that keeps me from spending time connecting with others in any category? Do I know what or who is holding me back? Have I considered how changing myself would help? Do I feel limited by my circumstances or others' thoughts about me? Do I believe better possibilities, options, and scenarios may exist that I have not yet discovered? What one thing do I want to change most in my life? What is the smallest thing I could do today that would have the biggest impact on that? All right, that's challenge 1. Diagnosing the connection with yourself. Seriously, there are people all over the world doing this alone, just this step better, and it's fundamentally changing their trajectory toward fulfillment. So again, don't stand in the bleachers. Come down on the field and play. In the meantime, if you feel ready to get even more serious about making a lasting change in your life, but it's not sticking, and you need some accountability and personalized guidance to keep it going, or if so that's the one half of it, or if you own a business and you want to push fast forward on all the trial and error in your sales and your business development efforts so you can use professional connection strategies to grow your business better and actually enjoy the process, then let's get you on the calendar at changewithnate.com. And the advantage that you have as an early stage podcast listener while I'm building this is during the connection series that I'm doing here, I'm offering an exclusive deal for podcast listeners to get into the 30-day personal and business development accelerators for 50% off the normal price through the end of May. Like, I'll only mention this on these 5 episodes and nowhere else online or any other setting, because I really appreciate you listening and being a part of this. While it's not big and flashy and quite as high exposure as all the other things out there. So I'm only mentioning on these 5 episodes, and this deal will only be available until May 31st. And you're like, okay, why is he doing this? And I'll pull back the curtain on what's in it for me, because I would ask the same question. The Wayfire website, which is my business website, is in its final stages of development, and I want to show some credibility and social proof through some more testimonials of some more happy coaching clients in this particular program. So I am heavily discounting the future price as I do a soft launch of this program in exchange for you documenting the process and your experience and sharing your feedback, as well as your patience as we work to build and optimize it. And I realize like that stage of something is not for everybody, but if you're like me, it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to get in and be a part of helping build it and not having to pay as much and still getting a lot of the value out of it. Number 2, the other reason I'm doing this is we're building exclusive online communities and courses for both personal development and strategic business development, with access and membership as one of the included perks of the accelerator program. And for an online community to really deliver value, like we've all been in all those kinds of different groups on Facebook and all these other different platforms. And sometimes it's just like, I'm not getting anything out of this, or, I check that every once in a while. But this is an exclusive online community and with high engagement, and it's going to keep increasing in value. For that to really deliver and have all that engagement and drive shared personal and professional growth, it requires the right motivated people to share their progress and add value to the group. And the people who are accepted into this accelerator will fit in that description. So if this piques your interest, then let's get together over a video call to explore. ChangeWithNate.com to get that scheduled. Otherwise, we'll see you soon on part 2 of the limited series Footholds of Connection. Go get them. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. I love the chance to make your day better in some way, whether that ends up being just a quick reset that you needed to change things up, or even just a laugh or some fresh perspective. If you're getting value out of it, can you please do me a favor and share it with someone else? Because as more people find and listen to the show, I'm able to bring more good stuff more often. It is the fuel to the bonfire. Also, I'd love to hear your feedback and any thoughts or ideas or questions you have, so we can be more connected and make the show even better with your input and your inspiration. The quickest way to do that is to send a message to my Instagram handle at Way of the Bonfire, which is also included in the show notes. And if you just want to avoid accidentally scrolling on social media, you can send me an email at nate@wayofthebonfire.com. And you know it, but make sure you click that follow button so you can catch new episodes as soon as they're available. Keep tending the bonfire, and we'll see you on the next one.